And we are back. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 270. Holy crap, we finally made it to 270. I'm your host, Cobb Backer. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned, and we will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
Welcome to Behind the Tool Belt, where the stories are bold, the conversations are real, and the insights come to you live, raw, and uncut. Every week, host Cobb Backer sits down with game changers, trailblazers, and industry leaders who aren't afraid to tell it like it is. No filters, no scripts, just the truth. Please welcome your host of Behind the Tool Belt, Cobb Backer.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, on this magnificent Wednesday. Hopefully it is sun shining on you today. I know it is for us. I know it's been a long-ass winter up north here where we're at, but hopefully wherever you guys are today, you are watching this and the sun is shining on your face. Today we have another amazing guest, and I'm going to try to pronounce your name correct because I definitely was like saying it wrong, and I think I've heard quite a few other people say it wrong. So Matt Fruge.
Boom, you got it.
Okay,
Nailed it.
Welcome to the Behind the Tool Belt podcast, and you definitely have been somebody that I wanted to get on the show. I apologize for not getting you on sooner. I love your content. I love that you touch on a lot of pain point that a lot of us contractors have struggled with. I love the fact that you're from our industry. I love the fact that you were a roofing contractor and have felt the struggles that most of us have, and that you are providing incredible, information for us contractors. And I just love what you do, man. So thank you for joining us today. And, let's see what we can, dig out of you today to see if we can't help some more people.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thanks again for having me. I've been a big fan of the show for a long time. See it at all the trade shows. So happy to be here. Happy to, talk shop in whatever way makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, I guess before we start getting into, what it is that you do today, let's kind of go back, hence the name Behind the Tool Belt. Let's go back to, you're the CEO at SuareDash. You're the former owner at Roofmark. You were in the U.S. military, Navy rather. So let's kind of just go back and let's hear it from the beginning and what it was like, what it's like now, and how you got here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think my story as CEO of SuareDash kind of starts back in the Navy. Anyway, I I joined the Navy to become a photographer. I found out that they had photographers in the Navy, and I was into that in high school. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. And the recruiters let me believe that for a few weeks to get you kind of like hooked into the whole process. And then they were like, oh yeah, there's like a 2-year waiting list on that. So ended up going into aviation, which was probably a smarter choice anyway. Um, was an avionics electronics technician on the E6B Mercury, which is just a big in-air command post. Was not what I expected. Like I said, I joined to be a photographer, and thought I was going to be, in some coastal town on a ship somewhere. Ended up getting stationed at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Had no clue why I was in the Navy going to Oklahoma, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot of system architecture and troubleshooting, and just kind of understanding how big complex systems work together without being a, engineer of any type. So that kind of like provided a foundation that I didn't know would come in handy later in life. Got out in 2003, and I'm from Beaumont, Texas, a little town on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and ended up bouncing around. Worked for my dad for a little while. He was an industrial concrete contractor. So I come from the trades and bounced around a couple sales jobs, and then ended up moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area in 2008, around there, and did a couple odds and ends. And like the first like actual job that I got was knocking doors at a roofing company. I responded back then. There were classified ads when people still read the newspaper, and yeah, so I did that, knocked doors, thought it was going to be like a throwaway job. Got into it, enjoyed it, was good at it. Did that for a couple of years, and then started Roofmark in 2010. And yeah, just got into it. It started off kind of slow. I was actually partners in another company with some friends of mine, and roofing kind of started off as like a side. It kind of all happened at the same time, and it took kind of a side stance for a while, and then it's probably 2012, 2013 that I really started kind of taking it serious. And along the way, operating that, we were here in Dallas Fort Worth, so we were heavily, exclusively focused on insurance claims, and just dealing with all of the complexity of multiple stakeholders, and waiting on money, and all that stuff. It just, the economies of scale never really took over in the business, and it kind of identified a problem that we ended up solving with SuareDash. So,
Wow,
kind of the highlight.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. That gave me some more in-depth information about you on more of a personal level, I guess. With your Navy experience, do you think you've applied anything that you've learned in the Navy to your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, all of the soft skill stuff, right? Just the discipline, the attention to detail, all of, caring about things. I feel like that's, me and my wife joke all the time, because I feel like as a young adult, you should like be required to do some type of service related job, whether it's serving in the military, or waiting tables, or bartending, or community service, or whatever. Because it just, it implants something in your, or it should implant something in your work ethic that's different from a lot of folks out in the world. So I feel like it's an edge. But practically speaking, yeah, people ask me all the time, like, how do you go from roofing contractor to tech CEO, right? Like, it doesn't not always a straight line there. But it was my understanding of system architecture, and just being able to navigate, talking to engineers, and being able to understand from a high level, what they're talking about when when they're talking in technical language that maybe I don't know the nitty gritties about. If I, my understanding of system architecture and all that good jazz, definitely came back to help me in this. But I that's just like the practical. I think really the soft skills, like the discipline, the attention to detail, all of that stuff, that's really the value from serving, I think. Because that stays with you in so many different ways.
Most definitely. Do you think it has helped you like get comfortable being uncomfortable? Because I know there's, in the military, of course I haven't served, but I've have relatives, friends, and everybody that have served, and like boot camp is like, the training that you endure. And I'm not sure if the Navy's like this. I'm sure certain branches of it, but like, do you think it has helped you endure more pain than, I guess, the average Joe?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's obviously, we hear it in multiple different places in society now, but there's, value in doing hard things, right? You got to do hard things. The normal things become a little easier. I also think it stems back to, my childhood growing up. My dad, I mentioned he was an industrial concrete contractor. They worked in the refineries of Southeast Texas, big petroleum refineries, Goodyear, DuPont, all kinds. And witnessing my dad, right, who's just like my dad, it's just like normal day-to-day guy in your life. Witness him be in charge of projects where they would pour, 500,000 square foot foundations and, erect, these multi-billion dollar, processing units on top of what he built. I took it for granted when I was growing up. But I think it set the scale for me in like what's possible, just your normal day-to-day life. And then witnessing your dad, run, a crew of 30, 40, 50 people, that's in charge of building a huge, facility. Yeah, I think it shaped my thinking, about what's capable and what's possible if you just like stay the course.
Yeah.
So I feel really lucky for that.
No doubt. And that probably even helped you in your military careers as well, I would imagine, because you've already had that good work ethic, bred in you, I guess, for lack of better terms, and I was just, when you were sitting there talking, I was thinking about how my dad and my mom are both entrepreneurs. And, but by trade, my dad's a mechanical engineer. So, but also was a master carpenter. I labeled him a master carpenter. But he was so good. His brothers, my uncles, and his grandfather and my great grandfather were all master carpenters. So my dad always had the knack of just, not just like rough framing houses and stuff like that, but like literally building, cabinets, kitchen cabinets, furniture, stuff like that. So that's what my weekends consisted of. Was we built a bar, because my family's owned a bar for over 41 years now. And so I grew up in that fast paced 7 days a week. The bar essentially owned us, as a family. It was literally a family owned and operated business, but my dad did everything. He was one of those guys, like, we didn't hire plumbers. We didn't hire people. We did everything. And, I wouldn't have gotten through a lot of the things that I've gotten through in my childhood, in my, young adult and in my adult life today, if it wouldn't be me saying to myself at times, and I've caught myself, and I didn't even realize it up until probably about 5-10 years ago, where I was like, what would my dad do? My dad's still with us. My mom has passed on about 10 years ago this February. It's been 10 years, but both of them were such good examples to me. And like you said, I didn't realize that. Like, I almost resented my parents because of the amount of work and them not being home, and, things as a child that we just kind of resented. And we worked. That's what we did. People didn't even come over. Our friends didn't come over and spend the night because they would get put to work as well. So every now and then my mom would let me sneak away and kind of spend the night over at a friend's house all weekend, just to kind of have some sort of childhood. Right.
Yeah. I know that. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, right? When you're going through it, it's the curse. When you get to be an adult, it's the blessing, right? And my sisters are, 11 and 13 years older than me, I believe. And so they came up in a different era of my dad, right? But like, we both got to experience the same thing. My dad was real big on like, he's still with us too. He's real big on projects and lists, right? Mm-hmm. So during the summer, before you'd leave, hey, I got a couple projects for you. I made a list. It's on the bar, right? When you get up, go ahead and get started on that. And it was, always like menial shit. It was like, pick up all the sticks. We lived on a wooded lot, a bunch of pine trees and all kinds of trees and whatnot. And before you can mow the grass, you'd have to pick up all the limbs and, shit that's fell out of the trees. And he was super particular. I mean, we're talking like the back part of it, we'd mow with the brush hog, right? Not even the lawnmower. And I'm like, what? stuff like pulverizes, but it was always just about like keeping me busy and keeping me focused on things. And you know, he always says, you know, that idle hands are the devil's playground, or idle hands do the devil's work, right?
Yeah.
He's always got something going on. He's 76 now, and they when Harvey hit the Gulf Coast, it flooded their house all the way up to the rooftop for the second time. And so they bought 30 acres on top of a hill up in East Texas and moved up to there. And it came with, you know, I think they got like, I don't know, 15, 18 head of cattle. And, you know, so he's just got shit to keep him busy now. You know, he built a barn and built a lean-to, and, you know, he had to like nurse calves. I'm like, Dad, you're 76, man. Just like enjoy it. And he's just not that way. It's just not in him. So
Same. Our stories are very similar. In many ways, it sounds like my dad was the same way. He'd leave us a list of stuff that, you know, because he traveled a lot. He was actually a mechanical engineer. He worked at Grove Worldwide, and he designed hydraulics, booms for cranes and man lifts and scissor lifts and stuff like that. So he would travel a lot around the country, Europe, you know, Japan, all over the place, wherever these cranes and man lifts and things were. And so he wasn't around a lot, but he always had projects, still has projects, still, like he built a cabin in upstate New York. Now he built like a duplex cabin. He calls it Baby Bear, and it's Big Bear Lodge is over here. And on the same piece of property he built, you know, literally, you know, he's out there. He's not doing as much as he used to, but he still has these projects. But this is the thing, whether I think our, you know, one of the things that went through my mind is that, you know, good times create weak children. And like, just like the saying goes, you know, hard times create strong men. And I think it sounds like your family has the work ethic that my family came from. And I think my dad, I know for a fact that he just didn't want to give us stuff.
yeah.
Right. He knew that we were going to have to earn things once we got out on our own, whatever it was. And he always said, I don't care what you do as long as you're good at it. And where our mantra came from for Behind the Tool Belt came from my great-great-grandfather. And it was, a job worth doing is worth doing right. And we still put that on our stuff, our billboards, on our, you know, side of our trucks and business cards, things like that. But I added to the end of it the first time. So a job worth doing is worth doing right the first time. And like, I don't care if we were building something like the catering kitchen, and I'm up on the scaffolding. Literally, I'm probably 15 years old, up on this pump jacks and stuff with my dad. And I attempted to roll out the Tyvek paper upside down. Like that, I couldn't do it. It was a no-no. And I'm like, no one's ever going to see it. He's like, that's just not the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was teaching me so much, like, about integrity, because really, if you think about how a roof is built, it's not necessarily the shingles. It's what I call the integral part of the roof is what makes the roof. It's the stuff that you can't see that you did, the preparation that you did that went into building that roof prior to you putting the shingles on is what makes the roof durable for long term. Yes, shingles are water sheds off of the shingles, but ice and water in the valley, step flashing, taping the step flashing, drip edge, the parts and pieces that homeowners don't see after you install the roof, the integral part of it. And, you know, it was when he was trying to teach me, you know, it's the things when people aren't watching that you're doing that makes you the person that you are.
Yep.
And whether he knew it or not, or maybe he was very intentional. I never really talked to him about that, and I probably should before it's too late. And because he's 70, I think he's 78 now. And unfortunately, I live an hour away from him, but it's just still yet too far away for us to connect as much as I'd like to. But anyhow, let's talk a little bit about your roofing career. Like I said, I watched a good bit of your content, and I guess, you know, what were some of the lessons, you know, and I consider like the losses lessons. So when I say lessons in this context, I mean, you know, what were some of the lessons that you learned as a roofing contractor? And then, of course, let's talk about some of those victories, those wins that outweighed your losses as well.
Yeah. Oh man. Whew. An hour's not long enough, but yeah, I think the biggest thing, I was thinking about this morning. I think the biggest thing I learned the hard way was how important it is to let the right people inside your company, right? And I think I think it's just a natural, just the way people get into this business, right? It's usually by happenstance. You know somebody that knows somebody, or you did it with your dad, or you take, but a lot of people just find their way into roofing. I think it's like a running joke in the industry. Like nobody wakes up and they're like, I want to be a roofer when I grow up. Some people do, I don't know, but
Maybe.
regardless. And so it's very easy to, as you're growing the business and you get to the point where you want to start building a team, it's very easy to just kind of like just draw from the gravitational pull of your circle, right? Your social circles, the people that are closest to your friends, families, uncles, aunts, whatever. And that's really dangerous. It can be really dangerous. And if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have saved like 6 years of pain and torment of having the wrong people at various stages inside the business, all the way from, door knockers all the way to leadership, right? I mean, it's hiring is definitely not like it was a learned skill for me that I'm still, working on to this day as we build the team out at SuareDash. But yeah, letting the right people in your business is super important, because ultimately it's going to set the tone. It's going to set the culture. It's going to, you're not always going to be around in every scenario and situation and conversation. And you really need to make sure that the people that are responsible for helping you grow the business can be trusted and share the same values and are going to do the right thing when nobody's looking, and not going to open the office up at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night because they have keys to it and they need a place to drink. There's just all kinds of stories I can get into, but I think that's probably at the end of the day, your business is it's the people that are in it, and so I think it starts there. I mean, there's all kinds of other nooks and crannies we can go into, but yeah.
No, I 100% agree. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently, and what would be probably one of the first hires?
Yeah, I would not focus on I call it, I think the term they use these days are like vibe checks, right? Where it's like, can I have a beer with this guy? Can I shoot the shit with this guy? Sure, but like, is this guy better at me than running production? Right? Is this guy better than me at bringing insane amounts of energy out into the field with our sales team? Is this person better than me at doing the accounting and the bookkeeping and keeping all the clerical stuff in order, right? Like there was a lot of like, oh yeah, they'll do. Oh yeah, I think they can do this, or I can train them to do that, or whatever. No, when you hire someone, if you're going to hire someone and make that investment, not only financially, but like with your time and your energy and all the stuff it takes to build a team, you need to make sure they're better at you than whatever you're hiring them to do. And I think that's, especially in our industry, it's got a lot of machismo and ego. It's what makes people great at selling roofs, which is ultimately what probably leads to most people starting their companies, is being a great salesperson. It can be hard to get your ego out of the way sometimes and want to be like the best at whatever it is and be like, yeah, I'm gonna run production, I'm not gonna hand that over quite yet, right? And I think once you make the decision to start hiring people, you really need to like lean into like, no, I need to find people that are like at least 2x better than me at whatever it is I'm going to hire them to do, and take your time finding them. Because you can get in a hurry to grow, and you can get in a hurry to do all the things you want to do, but slowing down, the saying, hire slow, fire fast. It's for a reason, right? You should take your time, find the right people. And if they're not aligning and not performing and not measuring up to whatever it is you measure, you got to cut them loose. And that's much easier to do when it's not your friend or your cousin or your uncle's brother or whatever, So
yeah. No, I'm guilty of holding on to people too long and hiring the wrong people, probably for the wrong reasons. And I think a lot of it does play into ego or pride, fear. A lot of it's fear. All of it stemmed from fear, right? Of like hiring somebody that might be smarter than me and not knowing how to delegate necessarily. Like once you start hiring these people, but letting them actually do their job was something else that I struggled with. And today, where I'm at today, it's like I understand when we hire, it's hiring to raise the company's IQ, right? Like not that there isn't things that we don't have to, we'll have to train on, but like you said, are they a better production manager? Are they better? Are they more organized than I am? Do they have a financial background? Do they, like what is the experience that they're actually bringing to the table? And I used to think that I used to have to sell people, to come work here. And, that's, and that was okay. But, today it's kind of like they have to sell us on why they should come work here, because we have created such, and I say we, and I emphasize we, because this is no longer about me, and it hasn't been for a long time. It's like you said, it's the company, it's the people that are making this company today. They're our brand, they're our culture, they're our marketing, there are people that they're the face of the company today. And I know I do this podcast every week, but they gave me the confidence to be able to put us out there, because not only am I putting myself out there, I'm putting the entire company out there.
Yeah.
But it's because of the confidence that I've gained in the team that we've developed around here. And there's so many smart people here that honestly, there are many days that I am probably the least intelligent person sitting in the room. A lot of these meetings that I attend that I didn't even host, and I don't have to host every meeting today. Like there's meetings probably happening in the building today that I don't even know that are happening, but I know that they're really good at their job. I trust what they do. And I just had to learn how to let go in order for the company to grow. And the more transparent that I was with people, and vulnerable, the quicker things got resolved, the quicker that we grew, the better quality of the company became, because I wasn't wearing the 15 hats anymore. I delegated 13 of them that created 13 full-time 80-hour week jobs. And, and I come to find out too, like they may not have started out as good as the way that I did it, but they ended up doing it way better than I can do it today. And somebody explained to me, like, if I could find somebody that could do it 70% or 80% as well as I could do it when I was on top of my game, they're probably doing it 100% better than what you could do it right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I was just wearing entirely too many hats. And we talk about this quite often, because I think a lot of business owners struggle with, like, this is my baby. I grew it my way or the highway. And it's no wonder that, and it's okay to be at a $1 to $5 million company. I mean, that's great. It's a hell of a lot easier to manage. I can tell you that. But, not being profitable and all of the horror stories that we hear, and let's face it, the statistic is that 80% of us go out of business in the first 4 years. And then in the first 10 year, all businesses, 90% of all businesses in the first 10 years go out of business. And I think a lot of all of it hinges upon leadership and the quality of leadership and the type of person that is in charge of everything.
100%. It starts from the top, and some people get lucky. Some people are just naturally strong leaders. I don't feel like I feel like it was a learned thing. I mean, I've always kind of been in a leadership position, but that doesn't make me a good leader just because I've been in leadership positions, right? You have to be coachable. You have to be open to, learning from your failures and your mistakes, and actually like getting your ego out of the way and pivoting, making changes, all that stuff. So yeah, I think for most people, the leadership thing is a journey, right? It's not a starting point. And if you're lucky enough to get good people around you on that journey, then yeah, that's where magic happens. But if you don't, and you get the wrong people next to you, it just becomes a dumpster fire. It can spiral out of control really quick. So
isn't that the truth? And I like how you put it. It is definitely a journey. It's an everyday self-awareness of where am I at? Am I the right fit? Am I that CEO? And if I want to be that CEO, what am I doing personally to develop myself to become that whatever revenue CEO of this company? And like you said, being able to surround myself around good, really quality, smart, driven people. But I think the biggest thing, it all starts right here. And we talk about it all the time, and I'm patting my chest. I don't know. The setup's a little different today. I'm not sure why, but the quality of the education. So I'm continuously educating myself on certain things and aspects of the business, and not even necessarily the business, because I can overindulge on business all day long and can't see the forest through the trees. But I find, like you were talking in one of your pieces of content, you were talking about like time management and things like that. And I'm not the greatest at it, but I have definitely gotten better, and I'm probably gotten better at it than half the people that I know. But I've found by carving out certain periods of time throughout the course of the day or days of the week, like Saturdays and Sundays, and spending enough quality time with my family, I've come to realize that's where I have like some of my greatest, most creative thoughts, is with being present with my family and removing myself from that atmosphere. And it goes into, they say you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And that is so true. And it's not necessarily like, it can be family members, and it could be coworkers and co-leaders. But I think more importantly, what am I doing outside of family and work? Who am I associating myself with? And I'm right off the top of my head, I got like 3 or 4 people that have super influenced me to push myself beyond limits that I even thought were even existed. Right. And Erico, big shout out to Erico. I can't even pronounce his last name. I've tried it a million times, but he's got a podcast. He's got a mastermind group called Cult Culture Movement. And he got me to scuba dive 2 years ago. I went and got my license, man.
Nice.
And, and some people listening to this might be like, well, what's scuba diving have to do with leadership? Bro, listen, I laid in bed. I almost did not complete the training that is required. And one night I went the first night to this training. It was, in a pool, and I got all this equipment on, and I'm trying to learn how to breathe underwater only through my mouth. And I've been taught my whole entire life, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Well, this completely contradicts all of that. And so I got home after my little training, and I'm laying in bed. I'm like, I'm not going back tomorrow. There's no way. Like, I can't do this. And then I started thinking, like, what would my team think of me, or my family, my children think of me if I didn't complete this? What kind of husband, man, leader, if I didn't push myself, like, and I'm the guy like, hey, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? I'm completely going against everything that I preach on a daily basis and set people up to put them in uncomfortable positions to make them better people. And I'm the guy I'm going to coward out on going back to just this simple training in a 6-foot pool, right? 6-foot deep pool that I can simply run up to the top and do that. But long story short, I got through that. I talked myself through it, did all of that, but yet still called Eric and made up an excuse why I can't go. I'm like, I can't go. I can't do it. I got 100 things that I got to take care of. And he said a few choice words to me.
I can imagine.
Hung up. Yeah, I hung up, and I called him back literally like 3 minutes later, because Jana was like, you are not going through all that shit that you just put yourself through and not going to Cayman Islands to go scuba diving. Well, outside of that, we get to Cayman Islands. I did it, but the camaraderie, the fellowship, and the 12 other men that are in high performing levels, entrepreneurs, top salespeople, like, was the best experience for me of being vulnerable, letting go and letting God and having faith in my abilities, putting myself in a very uncomfortable situation and relying on myself to get through that situation with the training that I just recently, had and just got through that entire situation, that it was so life altering that I am not the same person that I was 2 years ago, that I actually ended up going back again this year. But I know it has changed my mindset, and I scale that. I measure, like, let's just say something's happening to me today or throughout the course of the week. I look at, was it as bad as it was the first time going 100 feet underwater? And it's like, no, it's not. So I know I can get through this, if that makes any sense or not. But I often reflect back on, like, that was such a traumatic, even though it was very enjoyable. But for me, because I actually, backstory, I drowned as a child. So,
oh, wow.
I love the water. I love being on the water. I own a boat. I fish. I love the water, but
there's still probably something there in the back of your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to overcome that fear. So I faced that fear head on. And that's
Yeah.
my point of like personally pushing myself to bounds that it was a non-negotiable. I'm not scuba diving, but I did it. I got in the water. We were 130 feet actually. Yeah. I saw a turtle. Like this turtle had to be like 300 years old, like came up to me and let me pet its head. And I was like, okay, all right, this is why I'm here. Like, just chill out, shut everything else off and be where your feet are. And I've been on this be where your feet are kick probably since that day 2 years ago. I've been on this thing. I've been more intentional with my family. I've been more intentional about my schedule. I've been more intentional about my time, where I spend my time. Like all these things came about because I've surrounded myself around people like Eric O, Joe Huffman. I'm trying to think who else there. Tim Brown was there on the first trip. Vic came with us this year. Woody from AJ's Dent and
what up, Woody?
Yeah, Woody. And not to continue to keep talking about this, but it's like those personal development things that have made me who I am today, and a better father, a better husband, a better leader in general, because I don't think I know it all. And I think the biggest part of this, I guess, the wrap this up real quick, is to remain teachable and open-minded.
Yeah, I mean, if you can still go into situations where things aren't going right and question yourself, am I the problem? I think you're on the right track, right? Like, is this something to do with me? Because if like I can't stand those people that are always projecting, like it's always someone else's fault. They're always a victim. It's always happening to them. It's like, dude, no, it's not. Like you have it may not be your fault, but you have a piece. You have you're involved in this, and what are you doing that might change the outcome? Are you doing something that could change the outcome if you changed it? So yeah, I think having that self-awareness, pushing yourself, that's kind of what I got out of your story is like, by pushing yourself and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, you open up new levels in your mind. You open up new bandwidth, right? You're like, oh, like I went through a similar situation. Obviously boot camp was its own thing. And, at the end of it, you got they call it battle stations in the Navy. It's the Crucible in the Marines, but it's like a 18-hour gauntlet that you have to run. And it's like really hard. And by the end of it, everybody's crying and you're just like, yeah, we did it, So there was that, but then probably more impactful in my life was a trip. I got a group of buddies down in Houston where I'm kind of from. They used to go on backpacking trips, and I went on one with them to Sequoia National Forest out in California. And I was completely unprepared for this trip. Like, my buddies had gone on several of these and they were like, yeah, it's like day hikes and then we camp at night and it's going to be great. And I'm like, okay, yeah, day hikes, whatever. So I get all the gear and all the pack and everything. You got a 40-pound pack on. We hit the trailhead and, they had a tradition of like crushing a beer before they hit the trail. So we did that. And then someone had some whiskey. I was like, yeah, I'll take a shot of whiskey. And like I was just like completely like not in the right mindset for what was about to happen. And about 20 minutes past the trailhead, I realized how screwed I was, because we were literally on the side of a mountain that just was basically vertical, and we're walking on a path that's a little bit wider than your feet. And my legs were already like cramping up and locking up. And it was like a 4.5 day grueling backpacking trip up and down the mountain, but I was with some of my best friends. It was super. By the end of it, my knees were like completely blown out. We were coming down the mountain. Coming down the mountain is actually harder than going up the mountain on your knees, because they're, absorbing all the shock of every step that you take. And dude, it was probably one of the hardest things that I ever like had to do and get through. And it's a really like, luckily I was with people, but like, if you go out there by yourself, you're screwed. And so anyway, I got through that, but it changed me. Like, it changed the way I think about things. It changed the way I think about myself, what I'm capable of, what it feels like to be in extreme pain, like excruciating, like level 12 pain. But then having the end on the other side of it and finishing, like do hard shit. It's helpful. It may not be fun in the moment, but it's helpful.
It definitely is. And you know, some that might be listening, but I think the majority of people that are listening to this podcast can really relate to what we're talking about. And that's just like do hard stuff, you know, to be epic, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's the same in business, right? Like you know, we've done, at least for my backstory, it's like, you know, the pain that and most of it self-inflicted pain that I've endured over the years. I know I've proven to myself time and time again that there's nothing that I can't accomplish, especially with the team of co-leaders and co-workers that we have around us today, and my wife, you know, and my children. My children grew up in this business with us. I mean, we were tarping roofs together. I mean, my 3-year-old was playing in the front yard of this house that's a little south from here. You know, my 16-year-old was there, my 17-year-old was there, my wife was there. We're up on the roof, and you know, but I think by also leading by example, you know, for those that are around us, you know, it's attraction rather than promotion, I think. But I think hopefully we can inspire somebody to get off the couch, put themselves in an uncomfortable, healthy situation, you know, whether it's working out or, you know, whatever the case might be. And I work out. Fortunately, I got back into working out about a year or so ago. And, you know, that's what I say to myself too. It's just like just one more, that one more is going to, you know, do one more, and just continuously trying to push myself to be a better human being. So I'm here on this earth as long as I possibly can be. I got 3 grandchildren today, but, unless there's something else that you want to talk about on that topic, I want to talk about, SuareDash a little bit and how that came about. So if that goes into your roofing business a little bit, that's fine. But let's talk about the evolution or the birth of SuareDash.
Yeah, for sure. Just one final point on what you were talking about, doing hard stuff. You know, I think to tie that into like roofing, right, in business. My first commercial job, I was scared to death to do it. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I mean, I'd been in the business long enough to like, you know, I knew my bearings. It wasn't like right out the gate, but and we had hiccups, we had issues. You know, we had the DPS come and tell us we needed a permit to put the, you know, telehandler out in the street and block traffic. You know, so there was some lessons learned, but you know, we got through it, and the customer was happy, and that just opened up. You know, it paved the way in my brain of like, yeah, like we can do whatever we need to do. We just got to figure it out. You just got to go figure it out. I think most people in this space are of that DNA, right? They just go get it done. So anyway, but yeah, SuareDash. SuareDash, you know, it started as an internal CRM tool in our project, I should say, in my roofing company. This was probably back in 2017 is when we started working on it. And, you know, at the time there was no AI, there was no, you know, none of this stuff that we have now. Right. And so, my co-founder, his name's Jeremy Dick. He worked with me in my roofing company. To this day, probably the smartest guy I've ever met. And we started tinkering. You know, he had ideas, I had ideas. He had about as long in the business as I did, and we kind of, you know, really had this dream of like operationalizing a roofing company through software, right? Because we saw the problem with the business model in the roofing industry where, you know, companies leverage their salespeople to the hilt, right? You got to go knock the doors, you generate the lead, you meet the adjuster, you sign the contract, show up on the day of build, collect the money. Like you're basically running a business inside your business, and to try and find good people that are good at all of that is like good luck. And so we kind of saw a path. We were like, you know, there's like the old fashioned, like, you know, way to do this with departmental and manila folders and paper and doing all this stuff. But can we leverage technology to try and, you know, automate a bunch of this stuff and operationalize it that way? And so that's kind of where it started. We actually did not start with the financial, you know, pillar of the business. We started in the door knocking, canvassing, the sexy part, you know, the thing that everybody loves to talk about, is customer acquisition. So we actually, we built this really cool like door knocking app that was almost like Zelda. If anybody's played Zelda, where the map kind of expands as you move through the game, right? You don't see the whole map; it just kind of keeps building. And we were able to like pull in homeowner data real time, so it felt really snappy, and it was really cool. But you know, we built that on like a low code, no code platform, and I had probably invested $150,000 of my own money, you know, just kind of tinkering around with this over a couple of years. And, you know, it got to the point where I was so pot committed into this. I was like, well, shit, we gotta bring something to market. Like, I'm not just gonna, like, what are we going to build? And so, you know, we had all these ideas and we had prototype this, prototype that. We had all the little modules of the business kind of at least mapped out, if not halfway built. But then when I started talking to people and I really like started thinking about the competitive landscape and really did some soul searching on what actually kept me up at night as a business owner, it had nothing to do with how many doors we knocked. It had nothing to do with how many jobs we, you know, had on the books for that week. It had everything to do with the finances of the company, right? Like, how much money have we collected this week? Do we have enough left on our credit, you know, line at the material supplier? Do I have enough cash to pay, you know, the crews for this volume of work this week? You know, it was just a constant cash flow ninja gymnastic thing that I was having to manage. And I was just like, either I'm like the world's worst operator, or there's something like structurally wrong with how money moves through this industry. And so that was really kind of where we went down the path of like, okay, so how would we automate that? Like, how would we improve and optimize cash flows if that's like the root of all evil inside the business? Because it affects everything: your marketing budget, you know, how many salespeople you can hire, new trucks you can put on the road, equipment you can buy. And so that's kind of where it started when we decided to like commercialize a product. We were like, well, I don't really want to go compete with Job Nimbus and AccuLynx, and Roofer had just come on the market. And I was like, well, is there something else? And so that's kind of how we arrived on it. And then it's obviously taken, you know, its own kind of course and changed shapes a couple of times along the way. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of another kind of pivot, if you want to call it that, just because of the things are just changing so quickly in the market, and we see an opportunity there. So, but yeah, you know, and I guess it would probably be helpful to explain what SuareDash is, right? So, mm-hmm. It is a managed cash acceleration service, right? Where we come in and we become the accounts receivable department, or heavily augment your accounts receivable department and take over all of the billing activity, the follow-up with all the stakeholders, whether that be the insurance company, the homeowner. For mortgage endorsements, we've partnered with Ink Payments, where that's included in your monthly subscription with SuareDash. There's no additional fees, and we handle all of that as a managed service, so that you and your team can focus on what you're really good at, and where the soul of the business typically is in these smaller to mid-sized companies, which is going out, meeting new customers, serving their communities, building good roofs, and growing the business. We focus on collecting the money. Where we're different from, you know, a traditional accounts receivable, or we're not a collection agency, but, you know, we do collection activities. Where we're different is we will purchase the receivable from the contractor, right? And if you're familiar with invoice factoring, it uses the same principles and kind of frameworks of that. Factoring's been around since like the 1300s. It's pretty well-known thing. But it kind of has a bad connotation, because it's kind of like a last ditch, you know, it's in a lot of industries, it's like a sign of distress, like the business is in distress, so they need access to the cash, and then it's just kind of like a bridge thing. What we wanted to do is really operationalize and like really kind of fit the use of accelerated cash into every job, right, into the workflow of the business. And so we've kind of built the product to try and accomplish that. And it's that kind of 1-2 combination that makes it different from anything that I'm aware of out in the market. There's certainly factoring companies. It's a little hard with the nuance of insurance claims and the way the money's broken down, for a lot of factoring companies to work with insurance restoration focused contractors. But you know, that's where my industry background and expertise kind of comes in to build a, you know, kind of thoughtful product in that regard. So.
Wow. Okay. So I guess so you're not a collection agency. So you kind of come over and take over people's collections, or not collections, but their receivables. So give me a snapshot. Like if I would sign up today, what would a contractor expect to happen, I guess?
Yeah. So there's a bit of an onboarding process that has to happen, right? This isn't like, hey, here's a tool, flip a switch, and now we're live inside your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're taking over a pretty critical function of the business, and in a lot of cases, it's not really well built inside of the company we're engaging with, right? Because small companies have needs, large companies have different needs, and so we find our sweet spot in the $2 to $15 million top line revenue range is typically where most of our contractors fall. There's a bit of an onboarding process where we have a meeting with the leadership team. We really kind of do a deep dive on the business, how everything, like what is your workflow? Like when do you supplement before the job, during the job, after the job? Is that, 100% across the board? Is it as needed, right? Like when do you collect the deductible? When do you collect the first check? We really have to understand, like, there's I think we've mapped out about 18 different permutations of how jobs can like land in our lap, right? Based on when this was collected, when that was collected, all that stuff. So we really take the time to get to know that process of the business, so that we can mold our expectation and our staff that's going to be serving them to kind of meet them where they're at. And then after onboarding, obviously there's underwriting. We look at the financials. We determine, the credit limit that we're going to be able to, deploy into this company based on, the past 6 to 12 months, what that looks like. We'll set credit limits. We'll set job limits and terms and all that stuff. And then we're kind of off to the races. Onboarding takes about a week or so. We have an accelerated option where they can try and do it in the afternoon. We also meet with their sales team because their sales team is the tip of the spear. They're the ones out there forming the relationships with the homeowners, and they're the ones that ultimately have to present this to the property owner, depending on where it happens in the process, whether that's at contract signing or during the final walk around or whatever. And the analogy we like to use with contractors when we're kind of coaching them on how to prep their homeowners is like when you go to the doctor, it's not, Dr. Smith or Nurse Betty that, stuffs the envelope and sends the bill to you in the mail, and they didn't build the payment portal where you pay your bill. They're focused on delivering, providing the service that they provide, and they partner with a billing partner to deal with the insurance carrier and get all the billing codes and all that crap set up and do all the billing. And that's kind of how we position ourselves. And it makes perfect sense to homeowners when, it's explained like that. And so there's a bit of a handoff, like a welcome call with the homeowner to let us know who it is. There's marketing collateral we give them to help explain that. And then we just kind of take over from there. And it's up to the contractor. Most contractors use our claim funding solution on the depreciation check. They kind of have their front end processes intact, and their cash conversion cycle hasn't really started until they complete the work anyway. So they don't want to mess up anything there. We have other contractors that are like, yeah, I want you to collect everything. I don't want my salespeople touching any money, right? And so we get brought in a lot earlier into the fold with those types of customers. But for the majority of it, it's on the back end. So
okay. Now I think I heard you actually offer financing, like you give the contractor capital to
yeah. So we get confused for a finance company, and we get confused for a collection agency, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's again, speaking in analogies or metaphors, imagine you wanted to sell me a truck, right? You live in Pennsylvania, I live in Texas. We both agree the Blue Book value is $10,000 on it, except I offer you $9,500. I say, hey, look, I'm going to buy the truck for $9,500. I'll give you $8,500 right now. When you deliver the truck to Texas, I'll give you the other $1,000 and you're made whole at $9,500. I didn't charge you interest. I didn't charge a fee. I didn't do anything. I bought an asset from you at a discount, right? Mm-hmm. At 5% less. That's the same thing, except we're buying your receivable, your contract with that homeowner that needs to be an approved insurance claims. That's an important distinction. But we're buying that receivable. We're buying that asset from you at a discount. We're giving you 85 cents on the dollar upfront of whatever portion of that we're buying, whether it's ACV, depreciation, the whole thing. You're only paying the discount on what you're selling to us. And then when we collect it in full, the 10% reserve goes right back to you. There's a wallet on our platform. And so, you know, it's probably the cheapest money that is kind of ingrained into the existing workflow of the company, as much as we can be, right? There's like the stuff I mentioned earlier, but that's pretty much how it works. So it's not financing. We don't buy non-performing invoices. We're not a collection agency. We're not going to buy your receivables for 30 cents on the dollar and then go chase down deadbeats. That's not what we do. There's collection agencies out there that might do that, but that's not what we do. We try and just become the billing department, and we think of ourselves just as your billing department should think of themselves, as like, we got to get this money back in the door as fast as possible, right? Like this is all good work that we've done, and we need to collect on it. And so we're aligned with contractors in that regard because, you know, we have a cost of capital. The longer that money's out on the street, the more it costs us. And the contractor wants that 10% back as fast as possible. We want to get it back to them as soon as possible because that means we've recycled the money and we can deploy that into other areas. So it's you know, it's aligned on a lot of ways, and it's meant to reduce and take some administrative burden off the company, especially ones that are kind of going through the growing pains, and then also keep the cash flow flowing through the business so that you can stop acting like a bank and, you know, quit making your salespeople that you hired to go sell jobs like collection agents and billing people. That's not what they're good at. They're good at bringing the steak, not collecting the bill, right? And so that's what we try and focus on.
No, and you beautifully put that too, you know, differentiating yourself from a collection agency, you know, getting, you know, money from deadbeats and stuff like that. Have you ever considered, and maybe this is in the future for you guys, but are you guys going to only stay to like insurance restoration contractors, or what about those that are in the retail space?
Yeah. For the foreseeable future, we will be focused on insurance claims because, you know, the insurance market as a whole, you know, roofing, hail and wind claims account for about 1/3 of all property insurance claims that get filed each year. The other 2/3 are split between fire and water. Obviously, those are the next kind of frontiers, verticals that we want to go into. But even though the claims process kind of works the same, there's some pretty significant nuance difference between how a contents restoration company works versus a mitigation company versus a full service restoration company, how they operate, how money flows through, when it actually becomes a receivable. Like, is a mitigation invoice really a receivable? Has anybody agreed to it? You know, like, so there's those types of considerations that we have to think through from a product standpoint. Like, how does our product handle that stuff before we can really kind of go attack those verticals? We really kind of focus on the roofing space for now. So,
yeah, no, I like that. That's great. That is, you know, and I must agree. I mean, I think one of my biggest concerns, you know, when we got started early on is, you know, I would lay in bed, you know, I was just like you, I worked for somebody else and ended up, I'm a first generation roofing contractor. And, you know, it would be like, man, and I'm a mechanic. So I would spend a majority of my day, I would start a project, leave the guys there, and I would run around, try to punch out like, you know, small repair jobs and do whatever I could do to make ends meet, to make payroll at the end of the week. And I remember it was such a struggle. And then it became, you know, not like, where's the work going to come from? But it was what would keep me up at night is how the hell are we going to get all this work done? You know, not because we didn't necessarily have the manpower, but it was because I didn't have the capital coming in fast enough, or the seed money, you know, to back up, because for the longest time, we were a cash, you know, we grew as fast as the cash would allow us. And in some instances, we're still that way. You know, we didn't have lines of credit with you know, distribution, didn't have any lines of credit. I'll be honest with you, I didn't get my first credit card up until about 5 years ago. I didn't grow up with credit card debt and things like that because I hated debt. Now, as the years have gone on, I've learned how to leverage banks and real estate and things like that. I got into real estate several years ago and have learned that game of leveraging the bank and, you know, the difference between good debt and bad debt.
Yeah.
But I love that because, like you said, you know, I think think you've really found your niche, because I know you were talking earlier about like trying to navigate like what I didn't want to compete against, a CRM company. I didn't want to, go down that rabbit hole, but like you kind of settled into probably one of the biggest pain points that really any business, especially roofing contractors, face, man, on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty cool. And, and I think through your experiences and stuff, I think you've identified, the biggest pain point. And of course, any successful business, which, you've created here is finding solutions to people's problems, man. Dash.com.
Yeah. SuareDash.com. Just look for an orange button, say schedule a consultation. That'll get you through to one of the members of our team. And it's a work in progress, right? Like this is a really hard problem to solve. It's hard enough to do it inside the business, and it's got its own challenges doing it for companies, right? And but our entire team firmly believes like that this is a problem worth solving, right? This is like a universal problem across really all businesses, but specifically in our little niche industry. This is like nobody's immune to this, and you just got to figure it out. And so we're super jazzed, super excited to be part of our customers' journey and try and help them. And if we don't think we can help them, or we don't feel like it's going to be a good fit, we will tell you. We're not in this to, it's not a money grab. It's not if we can't help you, we shouldn't be doing business together. And so, if anybody sees this and wants to reach out, please visit SuareDash.com, click on the orange button, and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, I love it. I love what you're doing, Matt. I love, what your team and everybody in your partnership with Inc. Those guys are over there at Inc. Ryan Holiday is probably one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, he's great. Him and Ken are great.
Yep, such a great dude. So is there anything that you want to leave our audience with? It could be a personal nugget, it could be a professional nugget, before we get off here.
I think we covered a lot of ground. I think, do hard things and do the right thing, and, you'll be just fine in life, and in business. So
love that. I freaking love that. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I definitely want to connect with you offline here at some point in time, and you're just a good dude. And, I love what you're doing, and not that I want to be a part of it, but I more so would like you to be one of the sum of 5 people maybe that I can be, but thank you guys for tuning in today. Next week, I believe, I just lost my train of thought, but we'll have a guest next week.
There'll be somebody there.
It'll be somebody. So don't forget to tune in. I'm not sure if I might be out of town next week, so who knows where we're going to be streaming live from next week. But thank you guys. If you haven't liked, loved, subscribed, or if there's somebody out there that you think that might get something from this, please share this with them. And of course, you can reach out to Matt. I'm sure you go on to his Facebook page, Matt. I just want to make sure I'm saying it right. Fruge.
You got it.
On social media. I'm sure he's on Instagram, Facebook. That's where I follow him. I'm sure I know you got a YouTube channel. So check him out. Check out SuareDash.com if you think that your company is in need of their expertise. And I think what they're doing is phenomenal. So until next week, take care of each other, and we will see you then. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.